Some movies are remembered for awards. Others are remembered for changing cinema forever. And then there's Point Break, the film where bank robbers wear president masks. An FBI rookie learns to surf instead of following protocol, and somehow the villains feel cooler than the heroes. On paper, none of it should have worked. But decades later, it still stands as one of the wildest action classics ever made. With Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, skydiving chaos, giant waves, and non-stop adrenaline, this movie didn't just raise the standard for action films, it launched it into the stratosphere. So today, we're counting down 23 weird facts you didn't know about Point Break. And trust me, some of these stories are even crazier than the movie itself. Number 1. Tony Stark called Thor Point Break in the MCU. Patrick Swayze's role in Point Break is the reason Tony Stark gave Thor the nickname Point Break in the Avengers. Tony was making fun of Thor's long blonde hair, which reminded him of Bodhi's flowing surfer look in the movie. At first, it seemed like just another sarcastic Tony Stark joke, but years later, the reference returned in an even funnier way during Thor Ragnarok. When Thor was locked out of the Quinjet, he tried several voice commands to gain access, including Thor, God of Thunder, and Son of Odin. None of them worked. Then he suddenly remembered Tony's old joke and tried saying Point Break. To his surprise, the system accepted it immediately and opened the ship. It became one of the funniest callbacks in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and a hidden tribute to the 1991 cult classic. Number 2. The movie inspired a live stage show where an audience member played Keanu Reeves' character. A stage adaptation called Point Break Live became one of the strangest comedy shows inspired by a movie. Created by Jamie Keeling, it premiered in 2003 at the Little Theater in Seattle. What made the show legendary was its wild casting choice. Every single night, one audience member was selected to play Johnny Utah. A random person from the crowd would be chosen through applause or a quick audition, then suddenly become the star of the performance. To make things even crazier, the volunteer read all of their lines from cue cards held by a stage assistant. That meant every show was unpredictable. Sometimes the guest performer improvised, sometimes they awkwardly read the lines, and the cast had to react in real time. Huge moments from Point Break, including skydiving scenes and bank robberies, were recreated live on stage with funny twists and creative effects. The show toured cities like New York City, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, becoming a cult hit. Number 3. The night surfing scenes were filmed at dusk and made to look like nighttime. The movie's famous night surfing scenes were created using a classic filmmaking trick known as day for night. Instead of shooting in complete darkness, the crew filmed during dusk or twilight, when there was still just enough natural light to capture the action safely. With careful camera settings and timing, the footage was made to appear as if it were taking place in the middle of the night. The result gave audiences one of the most memorable moments in Point Break, when Bodhi explains that surfing is a state of mind. The sequence had to be carefully planned because filming in the open ocean after dark in 1991 would have been dangerous and highly impractical. Using the fading evening light allowed the team to create the illusion while keeping the production manageable. The calmer waves around Malibu helped create the mood of the night scenes, while the larger and more dramatic wave shots were filmed in Hawaii. Smart planning, beautiful locations, and perfect timing made the sequence unforgettable. Number 4. Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves had already appeared together in a 1986 hockey movie. Years before they became Bodhi and Johnny Utah, Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves shared the screen in Youngblood. The movie was set in Canada and followed a young hockey player chasing his dream of making it professionally. Swayze played Derek Sutton, an experienced veteran player who helped guide the lead character. Reeves, meanwhile, appeared as Heaver, a rookie goalie. Neither actor had a huge role at the time, but it marked the first time the two future action stars worked together. What makes it more interesting is how it hinted at their future dynamic. Reeves played the younger newcomer full of energy, while Swayze carried the confidence and charisma of a seasoned pro. Although Youngblood did not become a major classic, it quietly connected these two rising stars 5 years before their unforgettable partnership in Point Break. Number 5. The film opened at number 2, right behind Terminator 2: Judgment Day. In the summer of 1991, two major action movies were battling at the box office. One was Terminator 2: Judgment Day, directed by James Cameron, which opened on July 3rd. The other was Point Break, released 1 week later on July 12th. Both films became popular, but Point Break debuted in the number 2 position. During its opening weekend, it earned around $8.5 million, making it the strongest new release of that week. However, it could not overtake Terminator 2, which remained number 1 and was already breaking records for an R-rated film. What makes this even more interesting is the connection between the two movies. James Cameron directed Terminator 2 and also served as executive producer on Point Break. That meant the top 2 movies in America that weekend were both linked to him. Point Break eventually earned about $83.5 million worldwide against a $24 million budget. It was not an instant cultural phenomenon, but over time, audiences embraced it, and it is now considered one of the most iconic action films of its era. Number 6. Kathryn Bigelow refused to make the film without Keanu Reeves. When Kathryn Bigelow signed on to direct Point Break, one of the biggest decisions was who would play Johnny Utah. The studio had other ideas and wanted more established names like Johnny Depp and Val Kilmer. They believed bigger stars would attract more money at the box office. But Bigelow strongly disagreed. She wanted Keanu Reeves. At the time, Reeves was not yet viewed as a major leading star, and the studio questioned whether he was the right fit for such an important role. Bigelow, however, saw something others missed. She believed Reeves had a quiet intensity and vulnerability would make Johnny Utah feel human and believable. Not just another tough guy action hero learning to surf. She stood firm and continued pushing for her choice until the studio finally agreed. Reeves got the part, and the rest became movie history. Number 7. James Cameron helped write a major scene, but received no credit. James Cameron has claimed that he played a significant role in shaping Point Break, yet was never officially credited as a writer. In a later interview, he stated that he essentially wrote major portions of the film, but was denied recognition by the Writers Guild. His frustration reportedly came from the fact that although he served as executive producer and contributed heavily to the script, the Writers Guild of America ruled that he had not added enough material under their official standards to receive screenwriting credit. Original writer Peter Iliff has acknowledged Cameron's contributions publicly whenever asked. One of the scenes Cameron said he created was Johnny Utah's unforgettable jump from the plane without a parachute. He explained that the idea came to him after flying over Spain. Interestingly, director Kathryn Bigelow turned to Cameron when she was dissatisfied with parts of the original script. So while his name may not appear in the credits, his fingerprints are still all over the finished movie. Number 8. A dog was thrown at Keanu Reeves during the chase scene. During the intense foot chase between Johnny Utah and Bodhi, there is one moment almost nobody forgets. Out of nowhere, a pit bull is launched directly at Johnny Utah. It feels so chaotic that many viewers assume it must have been movie trickery, but it was filmed for real. Johnny has to catch the dog mid-run, calm it down, place it aside, and immediately continue the chase. The moment is so unexpected that it adds a sense of total unpredictability to the scene. That decision came from director Kathryn Bigelow, who wanted the chase to feel raw, dangerous, and completely out of control. To create that energy, she added strange obstacles like garden hoses, random pedestrians, and people carrying trays. But nothing stands out more than the flying dog moment. It is important to note that the pit bull used in the scene was highly trained, and the stunt was carefully supervised to protect both the animal and everyone involved. Reeves's shocked reaction, however, was completely genuine, which made the moment even better. Number 9. Two members of the ex-presidents were real professional surfers. Two of the actors playing members of the ex-president's gang were actual professional surfers, which gave the movie an extra level of authenticity. Instead of simply pretending to know the ocean, they already lived that lifestyle in real life. One of them, John Philbin, had especially strong ties to surf culture, making his role feel even more natural on screen. Director Kathryn Bigelow reportedly preferred casting surfers who could act rather than actors who needed to learn how to surf. It was a creative decision that paid off. You can see it in the confidence of their movements, the way they handled the boards, and how comfortable they looked in the water. Those details brought a realism that many trained actors could not easily fake. That authenticity is one reason the surf scenes in Point Break still stand out decades later. Number 10. Johnny Utah's name was inspired by football legends and mirrored Keanu Reeves' own life. The name Johnny Utah was reportedly inspired by famous NFL quarterbacks such as Johnny Unitas and Joe Montana. The writers wanted a name that instantly sounded like a talented, powerful athlete. That's why Johnny Utah was created as a former Ohio State quarterback whose promising career ended after a serious knee injury. That backstory explains why he handles pressure so well and why he has the discipline needed to become an FBI agent. But what makes it even more interesting is how closely it reflected Keanu Reeves' real life. Before acting, Reeves had been a strong hockey player as a teenager. He was talented enough to earn the nickname The Wall because of his skill as a goalie. But after suffering a knee injury, he had to give up that path. Instead of continuing in sports, he turned toward acting. That real-life connection made Johnny Utah an even more personal role for Reeves. Number 11. Keanu Reeves trained for 2 months in Hawaii before filming began. Before a single frame of Point Break was shot, Keanu Reeves went through an intense transformation to prepare for Johnny Utah. At the time, he had never surfed before, but that was about to change. For 2 full months, Reeves trained every day in Hawaii with a professional surf instructor. He wanted the surfing scenes to feel as real as possible, and director Kathryn Bigelow wanted the actors themselves riding waves, rather than relying entirely on stunt doubles. Alongside Patrick Swayze and Lori Petty, Reeves faced the powerful Hawaiian surf and pushed himself to learn quickly. For someone with zero experience, it was a huge challenge. But his preparation didn't stop there. He also spent time with FBI agents and real surfers to better understand the character. On top of that, he trained with quarterback coaches at UCLA to sell Johnny Utah's football backstory, preparation that later helped him land The Replacements years later. Number 12. Patrick Swayze was not the one running in the Reagan mask. During the movie's unforgettable foot chase, the robbers wear masks of former US presidents, and Bodie is shown using the Ronald Reagan mask. But surprisingly, Patrick Swayze was not the person doing most of the running, leaping fences, or sprinting through backyards in that sequence. Even though Swayze was highly athletic, the filmmakers chose to use a stunt double in order to protect him from injury. The production could not afford to risk losing one of its stars during such a physically demanding chase. What makes the story even crazier is that Swayze wasn't even on set for much of the sequence. He was reportedly in Europe promoting Ghost, which had become a massive success. His stunt double wore the Reagan mask for the entire chase, and Swayze did not see the finished scene until the movie's premiere. Number 13. The famous foot chase used a custom camera rig borrowed from Steadicam technology. To film the legendary chase scene, the crew needed more than standard camera equipment. The sequence ran through backyards, over fences, down alleys, and even inside houses, places where bulky traditional setups simply could not keep up. To solve the problem, director Kathryn Bigelow worked with camera operator James Muro to create an entirely new rig called the Pogo Cam. It was a handheld 35mm camera that weighed around 18 pounds. The team added a gyroscopic stabilizer borrowed from Steadicam technology to keep the footage smooth while running at full speed. They even attached a wire loop above the camera so the operator could frame shots while sprinting, since looking through the eyepiece was nearly impossible during the chase. The result gave the scene a raw, immersive energy that regular camera systems couldn't capture. Even John C. McGinley, who played Harp, later noted that the technique made the sequence far more exciting and memorable. Number 14. The final scene was not filmed in Australia. It was shot in Hawaii. The story's final moments take place at Bells Beach, Australia, during the legendary 50-year storm, a rare event said to create massive waves only once every half-century. The ending title card even confirms the location. But in reality, none of those scenes were actually filmed there. Instead, the production shot the climax on the north shore of Oahu. The crew never traveled to Australia for the iconic finale. The decision came down to practical reasons. Hawaii offered stronger and more reliable surf conditions, making those giant waves easier to capture on camera. It was also considered safer and more predictable for the cast and crew. To sell the illusion, filmmakers used real footage of the Australian coastline, then blended it with Hawaiian wave shots and close-up scenes through clever editing. The result convinced audiences that the final showdown truly happened at Bells Beach. Number 15. The screenplay was written at night between restaurant shifts for only $6,000. Screenwriter Peter Iliff was working at a Greek restaurant in Santa Monica when he came up with the original idea for Point Break. At the time, he had no stable career as a writer, so he spent his nights developing the script after finishing long restaurant shifts. He even took inspiration for Bodie's name from a waiter he knew named Bodie McCoy. For all that work, Iliff was paid just $6,000 for his first draft. But everything changed when producer Rick King recognized the potential of the story. King reportedly got the initial idea after taking a surf lesson in Malibu and imagining a connection to Los Angeles bank robberies. The script later went through many revisions before becoming the finished film. During production, Kathryn Bigelow and James Cameron also reworked parts of the story. Cameron is said to have added memorable moments, including the famous scene where someone jumps from a plane without a parachute. Even after all the changes, Peter Iliff remained the only credited screenwriter. Number 16. Anthony Kiedis missed fight rehearsals, so his character was knocked out instantly. Anthony Kiedis, the frontman of Red Hot Chili Peppers, appeared in the film as Tone, one of the ex-president surfers. But if you blinked, you probably missed him, because he gets taken out almost immediately in his first major scene. The reason was surprisingly simple. Kiedis reportedly skipped the mandatory fight rehearsals and said he was too busy to attend the training sessions. Since the stunt team didn't want to risk placing an unprepared actor into an important action sequence, they changed the scene. As a result, Bodie knocks him out with a single punch. The decision reduced Kiedis' screen time to only a few seconds and served as an unofficial punishment for missing rehearsals. He may not have loved it, but the filmmakers prioritized safety and keeping the scene effective over giving him a larger moment. Number 17. Kathryn Bigelow wore a parachute herself to direct the skydiving scenes. Kathryn Bigelow was never the kind of director who stayed safely on the ground shouting instructions. To capture the movie's thrilling skydiving sequence, she strapped on a parachute, boarded the plane with the crew, and jumped with them instead of simply watching from below. She helped guide the camera work, timed the action, and made sure every shot looked exactly right. And remember, this was the early 1990s, long before modern CGI could make scenes like this easy. Nearly everything had to be filmed for real. For Bigelow, the only way to make the action feel intense was to be directly inside it. She brought that same commitment to the surfing scenes as well. At times, she reportedly sat on a surfboard just outside the camera frame, directing actors from the water itself. Meanwhile, her husband at the time, James Cameron, was making Terminator 2 Judgment Day hobble. The two even reviewed each other's footage, pushing both films to be stronger. It's no surprise that Point Break remained her highest-grossing movie for more than 2 decades, until Zero Dark 30 surpassed it. Number 18. Patrick Swayze originally auditioned for Johnny Utah. It may surprise many fans, but Patrick Swayze first wanted to play Johnny Utah, the role that eventually went to Keanu Reeves. He even auditioned for the lead FBI agent before anything was finalized. However, after reading the script more closely, Swayze became increasingly interested in Bodie instead. The character's spiritual side, freedom-driven mindset, and rebellious energy connected strongly with Swayze's own personality. The casting team agreed and decided he would be a far better fit as the charismatic gang leader. Looking back, it was the perfect decision. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Several major stars were also considered for Johnny Utah, including Matthew Broderick, Johnny Depp, Val Kilmer, Charlie Sheen, and Willem Dafoe. It's hard to imagine how different the movie would have been with any of them in the role. Number 19. The movie went through 3 titles before becoming Point Break. When Keanu Reeves was cast as the lead FBI agent, the project's original title was Johnny Utah, named after his character. but the studio felt that title was too plain and didn't reflect the surfing world or the high-energy story. They wanted something bigger and more exciting. The second option was Riders on the Storm, inspired by the famous 1971 song by The Doors. While it matched the cool surfer atmosphere, producers eventually abandoned it because the lyrics had nothing to do with the actual plot. It wasn't until filming was already underway that they settled on the final name. Point break is a surfing term describing a wave that breaks perfectly when it hits a point of land. In the end, it became the ideal title, blending the movie's surf culture with its explosive action. Number 20. Patrick Swayze completed 55 real skydives during filming. It may sound unbelievable, but Patrick Swayze, who played Bodhi, personally completed 55 genuine skydives while the movie was being made. He was already passionate about skydiving before production started, and he wanted the aerial scenes to feel as authentic as possible for audiences. But what many people never knew is that the studio strongly opposed it. They feared that if Swayze got injured, the entire $24 million production could be thrown into chaos. Still, he ignored those concerns and continued making jumps behind the producers' backs. During filming, he even cracked 4 ribs. Later, he admitted there were moments when he nearly lost his life. Eventually, the studio made a deal with him. If he agreed to stop the unauthorized jumps, they would allow him to perform one official real skydive for the movie. That became the unforgettable Adios Amigo scene. Number 21. Point Break helped redefine what a modern action movie could be. Before Point Break arrived, many action films focused mainly on muscle-bound heroes, explosions, and simple good versus evil stories. But this movie brought something different. It mixed adrenaline-fueled action with philosophy, identity, and the strange bond between hunter and hunted. Johnny Utah was not a typical invincible hero. He was conflicted, emotional, and slowly drawn toward the very people he was supposed to stop. Bodhi, meanwhile, was more than a villain. He was charismatic, intelligent, and often more likable than the law chasing him. That unusual balance gave the movie a depth many action films of the era lacked. Later movies would borrow the same formula, combining thrilling set pieces with morally gray characters and emotional tension. What looked like a wild surfer crime film on the surface quietly became one of the most influential action movies of the 1990s. Number 22. Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves did many of their own physical scenes. One reason the movies still feel so intense is because many of the action moments were performed by the stars themselves. Both Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves trained heavily for the film and wanted their performances to look as real as possible. Swayze was already athletic and experienced in skydiving, martial arts, and physical stunt work. Reeves spent months learning to surf, training for fight scenes, and preparing to move like an athlete turned agent. Because the actors were directly involved, many scenes carried a level of realism that audiences can instantly feel. The movements look natural, the reactions feel genuine, and the danger seems closer because viewers know real people were doing much of it. That commitment helped give Point Break an edge that many modern CGI-heavy action movies still struggle to match. Number 23. The movie became far bigger after theaters than it was during release. When Point Break first hit theaters, it was successful, but it was not instantly viewed as a masterpiece. It performed solidly at the box office, yet many people saw it as just another summer action movie. But once it reached home video and cable television, everything changed. Audiences began rewatching it again and again, quoting lines, praising the chase scenes, and discovering how much personality the film really had. Over time, fans recognized that it was more than surfing and robberies. It had unforgettable characters, emotional conflict, stylish direction, and some of the most thrilling practical action of its era. That slow rise turned Point Break into a true cult classic. Decades later, new generations are still discovering it. Proof that some movies don't peak on opening weekend. They grow stronger with time.